Hey everyone, welcome to the Charlotte Mason Show. I'm your host, Julie Ross, and we are doing a series this fall on homeschooling through different life challenges. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about homeschooling when you have a chronic illness. And I know I've talked to so many of you who have been struggling with different things, and you've reached out to me, and my heart really goes out to you, but I haven't experienced that myself. And so I wanted to bring someone on who has walked through that and is currently still walking through that, who can kind of talk to where you're at. And so I'm very honored that today my dear friend, Carrie Ballentine, has come on. I've known Carrie for a very long time. We did women's ministry together. Gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago, maybe 10 years ago, something like that, 8 years ago. I can't remember. A long time ago. And she's such a precious soul. And I have watched her walk through the illness that she has, and she'll kind of talk a little bit about it, but with such grace and strength and courage and perseverance. And so I know that this episode is really going to bless so many. So thank you, Carrie, for being willing to come on and talk to us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really blessed to be here, and I'm excited to be with you.
Thanks. So to start off, can you tell us a little bit about your family and kind of your homeschool journey, and then tie into kind of the, some of the physical struggles that you've had as well?
Yeah, sure. So I am married, and I've got 4 kids. One is 20, one is 18, one is 14, and one is 11. So I've gotten 2 that are out and about and in college, and then 2 more are still at home homeschooling. And I've been homeschooling now since my oldest was in kindergarten. Now, he did go to public school for his high school years, but then my daughter stayed at home for her high school years. So we've done it both ways, and both have been great. But then my other 2, I've homeschooled them all the way through as well. So I've been homeschooling for a long time. And I feel like I've got a lot of experience in some ways, and then some days I feel like I'm a newbie. I think that's just kind of the way it goes. In terms of my chronic illness, in 2015, and interestingly enough, it was October of 2015. So I think it's so interesting that, tying in right with that, since we're at my 6-year anniversary of when this actually happened. I had,
it's been 6 years.
It has been. Wow. It really, in some ways, it's flown by, and then in others, it's felt like an eternity. But and so in October of 2015, I had an epidural steroid injection for some back and nerve pain that I was having. And the anesthesiologist poked my dura, and I had got a spinal leak. And at the time, the doctors kept telling me I didn't have a spinal leak. I immediately had a headache. It was a horrible headache. And I tried every remedy that there was, both at home and in the hospital. And this went on for 14 months. And doctors kept telling me that I was having migraines, that it was every condition under the sun, but that it was not related to what had happened at the epidural steroid day. But finally, I had a doctor who put 2 and 2 together, sent me to Duke, and they found the leak. And I was patched. So I was thinking, this is great. I've been patched. I'm going to be better. But unfortunately, I got what's called rebound intracranial hypertension. And it's when your body then is producing too much spinal fluid. Mm-hmm. And because I leaked for as long as I did, my body learned to create too much spinal fluid during that time. And now it doesn't know what to do other than to create the amount of spinal fluid that it does. Mm-hmm. And so I still have a headache all of the time. It's a different kind of headache than it was before, but it's still a headache all of the time. So it's, it's a really difficult thing that I deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know how you have made it this long in that chronic kind of pain. So at first, how did that kind of change your homeschooling?
Yeah. So at first, I think we went into survival mode.
Yeah.
It was just all about what we could do to manage through every day.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't know what was going on. I was going to a lot of different doctor's appointments. We were trying to figure out medication. And there was also this thought in all of our heads that it was going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in some ways, in terms of school, there was a lot of things that were sort of put on the back burner because, there was this thought that, oh, I'll get to that when I'm better.
Mm-hmm.
But then as months turned into months, and which turned into a year and so on and so forth, and I wasn't getting better, I realized that, things were really going to have to shift in terms of how we did homeschooling.
Yeah.
What was funny, I'll never forget though, that first year, it was when I was trying to get like my medications right.
Yeah.
And my older kids were 12 and 8 at the time. And then my younger two, I kind of say my older two, and then I keep them in sets sort of. Yeah. My younger two were 8 and 4. And so my younger two, I was still reading out loud to them.
Wow.
And I would fall asleep just reading out loud to them.
Yeah.
Medications I was taking. They thought it was the greatest thing. So
let's go play.
They did. Oh, they would think, oh, this is the best. So they would cover me up. They would run off and play, and they would have, however much time until I woke up. So
yeah. So then once you kind of realize, like, okay, this is not getting better. This is more permanent situation. What kind of changes did you implement then to kind of go, okay, this is how our schooling needs to adjust so that, I'm not falling asleep while I'm reading aloud.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, so I'm a very type A person. I like things to be just so, and that's how things had been for our homeschooling experience. And at the time of when I got the leak, I was actually working 2 part-time jobs, as well as homeschooling. And so you can imagine that things were very put into place, and everything was done in a certain way. So I had to become a much more laid back person, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to accept that that's how things were, and that it was okay for things to be that way. It was okay for me to be more laid back. And so that was a big shift, but it was really necessary.
Yeah.
We started doing a lot of school in creative places.
Yes.
Like bed, or the couch, or, places where I could rest, could, sit right beside me and do what they needed to do. And it just became, honestly, a much more laid back way of looking at school and education.
Mm-hmm.
Things were still getting done, but in a much more relaxed kind of way. And honestly, I also had to change my mindset such that if it didn't get done that day, so like, for instance, I would make a list, and I still do this, of what needs to get done in a day.
Mm-hmm.
But if it didn't get done, or it doesn't get done in that day, it's okay.
Yes.
It's not the end of the world. We can move it to the next day. We can adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really important in this journey, is just learning flexibility.
Yes, right. The flexibility piece is key.
Yeah,
it's very hard when, we both have very similar personalities. When you're used to being highly structured, right? Do you feel guilty at all about kind of being more flexible and allowing things to roll over to the next day?
Yes, 100%. definitely had the guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you kind of wrestle through some of those emotions about, am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? Should we keep doing this? Like those kind of things. I'm sure you had those thoughts.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think I've wrestled through that in a bunch of different ways. I mean, I've wrestled through it in community and talking to people. I've wrestled through it in prayer. I've wrestled through it with journaling, just lots of in counseling. I mean, there have been a lot of different ways that I've really had to struggle through almost a complete personality change. And, I've got these thoughts that will come to my mind, and they're these thoughts of, you have to do it this way, or you're failing. And I have to remember that's not truth. And I have to stop it and say, this is not truth, and remember what is true. But absolutely, I mean, it's not only guilt, but sometimes shame as well, because I just, have lived my life a certain way for so long.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. And I think those are great points. And it's good for people to hear that those feelings don't mean you're doing something wrong.
Right.
That they're very natural and expected, especially if it is a different shift from kind of how you've been schooling before. And if those feelings are okay, but you do need to kind of figure out tools, like you were saying, like the counseling, the journaling, talking. I love that, the community aspect, because I'm sure, in your case, when you're in pain, it can be somewhat easier to isolate. And, but you need that community support as well. How did you kind of navigate that? Or how was your community kind of able to help you navigate some of this?
Yeah. So community has definitely been both a saving piece and a hard piece as well. Because whereas before I would have loved to just go out at night and be with my friends, go out to dinner, or go out and get coffee after a long day of homeschooling the kids, like that would have been a reprieve for me, because I just love, if I've got a group of friends, I love being with them, or I love being one-on-one with someone that I just truly love, but what life looks like now is, for me to get through a day is then I'm done. I can't go do dinner or coffee or, or whatever. For me, it's a win.
Yes.
To get through the day.
A big win.
A big win. Yes, absolutely. And so I've really had to be intentional about reaching out to community. And at the beginning, I think I did do some isolating, and it was easy to isolate because one, I felt terrible.
Right.
Obviously, I think that's very natural, just to pull back because I felt bad. And I think it's a very natural thing for people who are in pain to pull back.
Right.
But I think that I had enough people in my life who love me, who were reaching out to me and not letting me stay in that place. And so I think that was what was vitally important, that kept pulling me back out. And also my community was vital when I would have to have procedures and surgeries, because not only did they, help me in working through things and processing and, getting through all of these feelings that we're talking about, but they would also come into my home and help me with my children, help me homeschool my children, do my dishes for me. There were people who came over and did yard work for us. So for us, community has been really sometimes a saving grace. And we're so thankful for community. And I'm so thankful that community has kept me from drowning at times. Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point. I think it can be that temptation to isolate, can be that temptation to go, I can figure this out. I can do this on my own. It takes a lot of humility to say, I'm in pain, I'm suffering, I need help. What were some of, you talked about yard work here, but in terms of like homeschooling, what were some of the practical ways people help with that?
Coming over and like I said, literally taking over my day, actually helping me with homeschooling. Like, I actually had to have a surgery that required me to be in bed for a period of time. And I needed a lot of help. And they would come in shifts. Like someone actually organized people, like so-and-so would come this day, so-and-so would come this day, another person would come this day. And they would take those days over, taking homeschooling the kids on those days. And so that was invaluable because I genuinely was unable to homeschool the kids during that time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, bring in the troops, right? To homeschool.
Absolutely.
People. Yeah, for sure. What do you find was the most helpful for you? Not just during that time, like you said, like with the surgery, but like most helpful, like kind of overall with how you were changing your homeschooling from before to now.
The most helpful.
Well, okay. If someone's going through kind of what you've gone through, what would you say? Okay, make sure you do XYZ, or it could be more than one thing too.
Okay, so first and foremost, I would have to say the most helpful thing was this mind shift that I had. And it was actually, it has nothing to do with homeschooling. And it was really, it has to do with where I was in my relationship with the Lord and my foundation. Because I really came to terms with where my hope was. Because every procedure that I would go to, every surgery that I would have, whatever it was, for a while there, that's where my hope would be. It was that's what would fix me. That next thing, that would be the thing that would fix me. And I would come up disappointed every time. And I found myself maybe 2 or 3 years in really struggling. And I came kind of to a crossroads, I think. And it was a place where the Lord met me. And I think he just helped me understand that I had a choice to make. And I really got to decide, where was my hope going to lie? Was it going to lie in the circumstances that I was facing on a daily basis, or was it going to lie in him? And I think that was where I really saw a shift in how I viewed life and how I viewed homeschooling and how I viewed my marriage and how I viewed my friendships and everything, because my hope was no longer in how I felt on a daily basis, or how if a procedure went well, or et cetera, et cetera. My hope was set securely on Christ and the future and eternity that I have in him. And that was really a game changer for me. So I think that probably, if I were to say, what's the biggest thing, it's just really learning that perspective change, that our hope cannot be set on our circumstances or anything having to do with our circumstances.
That's great. That's beautiful, Carrie. Thank you for saying that and being, I know you're always so vulnerable and well-spoken. It's one of the things I appreciate about you is your heart for the Lord and the way that you have kind of grown and changed and leaned on him through this. It's just such an amazing witness to see. But that's such a good point. It translates to any challenge, right? Whether it's illness or some of the other challenges we were talking about, right? That like, this isn't the ultimate thing, right? There is something beyond this, and to keep our hope and our perspective on that. And, the things that we freak out about, and we stress about, and, like, are they going to learn how to spell? And it's like, and yes, that's very important, right? Don't give up the spelling. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But in the ultimate scheme of their life and the grander scheme of eternity, spelling is just a really little part of it, right? And to hold those things loosely unto the Lord. And, kind of mentioned that several times, like this concept of surrender.
Yes.
And surrendering the outcome. We cannot control the outcome of our circumstances, right? We can only control how we are responding right now in this moment.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, that honestly, so that's probably been also one of the biggest things is just surrendering like each and every part of my kid's life and each and every part of my kids' education. And that's been really difficult for me as well. Because like you're saying, it does really matter to me if my child does well on a test, or if my child writes paper well, or if my child is, learning a certain aspect of whatever he or she is studying. And if he or she is getting that information the way they should be. That is really important to me. In fact, recently I discovered that my 14-year-old truly cannot spell. And I was thinking, this is something we really need to work on. Yeah. But I know that in the grand scheme of things, I've got to just let go of the details sometimes that are that I can get caught up on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important.
Yeah. And I think, you have done an amazing job too. Your son's like starting to become a rocket scientist, which I think is so cool. And it's a cool thing to tell people, right? Like, I'm going to be a rocket scientist.
He is studying to become a rocket scientist.
Your daughter's in nursing and she has such a great heart for helping people. How do you think this whole thing, not just with schooling, but overall, has impacted your family the most?
In a lot of different ways, it's been good and bad. Or I won't say bad. I don't want to use that word. It's been hard.
Yes.
It's been hard, and it's been beneficial as well.
Yeah.
It's been hard for them in terms of, I think my kids have had to grow up faster than they would have otherwise. I think of my older two particularly, especially my 18-year-old. She has a very nurturing heart anyway, but man, she jumped right in and with both feet into that role. She was 12, like I said, when everything happened. And even as a 12-year-old, I think she took on a lot of responsibility, and she's carried that throughout her teen years. And she continues to be very much the caretaker in our home. So I think that they've had to take on a lot of, responsibility. But in some ways, then that translates to them becoming more independent in a good way. Right. I think that they know how to do a lot of things that maybe some kids don't know how to do at their age, or I certainly have learned very much what overfunctioning looks like, and I do not do it.
Charlotte Mason would say it's masterly inactivity.
There you go.
It's purposeful and authoritative, getting out of your kid's own way.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
See, it's great.
That's what she's saying to do.
Yay. It's so good though, because man, I was really, really good at overfunctioning, and I figured that out really quickly when I did get a headache, and that caused me to be in a lot of pain every single day. Man, I saw really quickly the areas in which I was overfunctioning.
Yeah.
So I learned that really quickly. My counselor helped point that out to me.
Yeah, that's good though. Yeah, they learned a lot of independence and
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that has been good. I think that, for any family that goes through something like this, there can be tension, and there can be, we have had to figure things out in terms of who takes what responsibilities. We have had to figure out sometimes the dinner time, because I'm not up to cooking dinner. And so that's looked different. And we've had to talk about who's taking on what role. So, it's definitely impacted us in a lot of different ways. Chronic illness will certainly put strain on a marriage.
Mhm.
So that's definitely just a very real thing.
Yeah.
So, it hits from every different side.
Yeah, right. It's not just, you can't just isolate one aspect of your life. It's your life, right? Yes. Yeah.
And it's not just me.
Yeah.
It affects my family for
Mhm.
sure. And I figured that out. At first I was kind of all in my head about me and how
Mhm.
this was affecting me.
Yeah.
And I've got to get my medication and I've got to go to my doctor's appointment. And then I did begin to see how it was affecting my family as well. And I needed to look outside of myself and see that.
Yeah, that's a good point. What would you tell someone who maybe has a friend or a family member who's going through a chronic illness, of how maybe what not to do or what they could do that would be beneficial to walk alongside of them?
So I think one of the biggest things is empathy. I am so grateful when someone comes alongside me and is just empathetic
Mhm.
and shows kindness and love in the midst of my pain.
Yeah.
Sometimes well, most of the time, it can't be fixed.
Right.
If I'm having a horrible day, and let's say that I've got to this is really hard for me. But let's say I've got to stay in bed for the day, which is like, that's a horrible thing for me to have to stay in bed for the day. For me, that's just hard for me. Um, to have a family member come and just say, I know how hard this is for you.
Mhm.
And I love you. And I want you to know that I love you no matter what. I want you to know that you're valuable no matter what.
Yeah.
To just speak words of love and truth. That's so meaningful.
Yeah.
And just to be there and to ask, what can I do for you? How can I help you?
Mhm.
That's honestly the most helpful thing. And then honestly, just to not to make assumptions. I think that that's difficult, is when assumptions are made,
Mhm.
because assumptions are not always correct.
Right. What do you mean by making assumptions? Like making assumptions like, oh, well, you're out of the house, so you must be feeling better today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, oh, you have on makeup and you look pretty, so you must
Yeah.
be feeling better today.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten comments like that all the time.
Yeah.
Or, oh, you look great. You must be feeling better today. Yeah, all of those things. Because the reality is, for me, and I'm sure so many other people that may be listening today, this is an invisible illness. You can't see it. I don't have a walker. I haven't lost my hair. I don't have any visible
Yeah.
signs of what's going on.
Yeah.
So if you do know what's going on with me and I do look fine, it doesn't mean that I am fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense about the assumptions.
Yeah.
Is there any encouragement that you would give to a homeschooling parent who is struggling with a chronic illness? What would you say to them?
I would just say to, first and foremost, abide with Christ. He is your source of strength. I honestly have learned more than anything the verse that I'm sure many of us learned at an early age. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And I have truly come to understand like what that means,
Mm-hmm.
because apart from him, I cannot do anything. Or, where it says my grace is sufficient for you, I truly understand what that means. Like, every day he gives me the grace that I need. And so for anyone who is thinking, I'm just really struggling right now, to just remember God gives the grace that is necessary for each and every day. And he won't give it, a lot of times I would struggle, and still sometimes struggle, with the what ifs for the future.
Yep.
And the reality is that God doesn't give grace for what's going to happen next week or next year. He gives the grace for what I need today. And he shows up with new mercies every single day. And it's amazing. I have what I need for every day. Even the days when I can't get out of bed, I have what I need for that day. And I am able to school for that day. The problem is when I have tried to do things in and of my own strength.
Right.
When I try to, think, oh, I can do this on my own. That's where the problem lies. And I've certainly done that. And that's, I won't ask for help. And I'm too stubborn to go lie down.
Yeah.
I'm too prideful. All of these things are me not resting in the grace that has been offered to me.
Yeah.
So when I rest in that grace, it's there, and I am able to do what it is that God has called me to do. And I do believe that God has called me to homeschool. There are so many people who say to me, why do you homeschool? You've got to climb up hills.
I was wondering if you get asked that.
Yeah, all the time. They're like, just send your kids to school.
Yeah.
But for me, for this season, each and every year I ask the Lord, what do you want me to do for this child? And I believe that every year he shows me, he leads me, he guides me. And this is what I believe I'm supposed to be doing for my children. Yeah. And if he calls me to do it, he will sustain me through it. Yeah. And he has done that. And I believe he will do that for anyone who is in the same position that I am in. He will give them exactly what they need because his word says that he will do it. And he is true to his promises.
Amen. Yes. Preach it. No, I love that. I think, we can get in our heads with the worry and the fear and let that take us over. And like I was saying before, that it's when we're living in this day, in this moment, what do I need to be doing right now? How can I take control of my thoughts captive and my emotions in this moment? What grace do I need to pray for right now and stay focused on what's happening right now and let the problems of tomorrow kind of take care of themselves. But I know that is such a struggle to do in my own life as well. But that is really encouraging and just knowing, that yes, if this is what God has called you to, he will give you the strength and the grace if you are open to the possibilities and what he's bringing into your life and not, he said, sometimes we can push them away. Oh, good. When he wants to offer. So that's really encouraging. Well, thank you so much for this time. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or share that we haven't gotten to?
No, I thank you for letting me share my heart. And
I know this will definitely be a blessing. I know several people who are customers who are going through this and talk to me about, kind of adjusting their schedule and their plans and what they're doing with their own kids. And, I really am in awe of the strength and perseverance that you continue to show. So I love you, friend. Thank you for coming on and talking with everybody.
Of course.